It's an awesome book and I've been loving it. But before we dive into the book, I thought it would be nice to kind of get to know you since on your show, a lot of the time you dive into your guests. So I thought this would be funny.
Love that. Let's do it.
Your journey has taken you from being a monk to becoming a popular motivational speaker, New York Times bestselling author. And I was kind of wondering, how did you make that transition? And what was the biggest challenge you would say that you faced during that process?
I mean, the transition is like, you're looking at like 10 years, of time in between. So I left the monastery exactly 10 years ago right now. And so the journey you see is like, it looks quick online sometimes, but then the actual journey is so much more slower and harder. And I'd say the transition happened in so many different phases. And that's kind of how I think a lot of our life transitions happen. So when I left the monastery, I ended up moving back in with my parents in London. And for like 12 months, I was just struggling to find work. No one wanted to hire someone who'd been a monk before. People were like, what are your transferable skills? Sitting still and being silent. Like, we don't need that.
Right.
And so I just spent a lot of time like trying to find myself again, reconnect again. I'd forgotten how to do small talk. This would have been really tough for me to do. Like, I didn't know who the Prime Minister of England was. I didn't know who won the World Cup. I didn't know what the latest movies were or music was. I had no idea. And so there was a whole period that was just reconnecting. And so the version of me you see today is like going back to being myself and reconnected again. But at that time, there was this whole phase of just reintegration and reconnecting with society. And then after that, I went back into the world of work, which really helped me kind of get a sense of what was going on and how things were. And then after working in the corporate world for around 2-3 years, that's when I was like, I don't feel like this is my purpose. I don't feel like this is what I was meant to do. I feel like I had that experience because I wanted to share what I'd learned to help people. I've learned all these amazing techniques like meditation and mindfulness, and I've learned so many disciplines, and I've learned so much incredible wisdom from this experience. My goal must be to have to share it with people.
Right.
And I was sharing it while I was working in the companies and everything. So the biggest challenge I'd say I've had, which I think hopefully will relate to the people that are watching and listening right now, is allowing yourself to change, allowing yourself to say, I want to be more.
Yeah.
And it's okay to want to transform and change and grow. I don't have to stay stuck. I don't have to stay the same if I don't want to. And I think that's the greatest challenge that you go through, is allowing yourself, giving yourself the permission to be more of who you are.
Right, because normally before you make that decision or say that to yourself, a lot of times people first look at that as failure. They think, oh, I failed.
Exactly.
Versus saying, I'm allowed to change my mind anytime, or I'm allowed to wake up today and decide that this is not enough for me.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of switch from feeling like a failure or not enough versus being like, no, this is just, rock bottom and just only up from here?
Yeah. Well, I look at it as how much time we have, right? Like, I think that a lot of us don't recognize, a lot of us now today feel like, gosh, I'm getting old. And it's like, we're not even that old, right?
That's
you're like,
so true, yeah.
You're in your 30s or your 40s or even your 50s. And if you're in your 20s, you're definitely not. And if you're in your teens, you're definitely not. And it's like, we start putting this timeline and deadline on where we're at. And I kind of look at life and go, there is no timeline or deadline. There is no schedule. And I think we think about life as a schedule because someone in our life told us, go to college, get a good job, get married, buy a house, like whatever it is, right? There was this laid out plan and we're measuring ourselves according to that plan, as opposed to saying, wait a minute, there is no plan. I can only live my life. And so I think we have to disconnect from society's approach to what life should look like,
right,
and recognize there is no should look like. There's only the life you want to live.